Jo, to jsem chtěl, actually, tohle je to, co jsem se chtěl podívat. My jsme se o tom už bavili, já jsem o tom měl dneska TikTok. Prostě LoL Classic a tady vlastně zjistíme, co se s tím LoL Classicem děje.
History repeats itself. It is not history that has anything to do with League of Legends, and it is not history that has anything to do with Riot Games.
Já bych tam mohl dát ty titulky, že já nechám proč ty titulky.
And still, Riot is making a move we've seen only a few months ago. And they are trying to make a move that shocked the entire industry a few years ago. But in Riot's case,
Wolf
the
Classic
outcome might be one massive gamble. So the news came literally out of nowhere, with two Korean pro players just starting their streams, and they casually revealed that Riot Games is working on League of Legends Classic. Now, how credible is this? Well, quite a lot considering it is Doinb and Uzi, but somehow I still have no idea how it's possible for something like this to leak.
Kamaráde, já jenom nevím, mě tady někdo na TikToku psal, že Doinb, že to jenom trodil, nebo něco takového, ale proč to říká teda je Uzi, že jo, jaký to dává smysl. Protože on tam někdo psal, že Doinb prostě jenom říkal něco o smyslu, že by si právě zahrál něco jako v Classic, takže by se zahrál v LoLku. Ale Uzi vyloženě říkal něco o tom, že by měli zprovoznit separátní server na LoLko Classic. Což nevím, jestli bys chtěl separátní server, a taky už si nevím, jestli nejzastaralý ten smysl toho, že vůbec přepínáš ty servery, jestli by prostě nebylo lepší. Kdyby měli to, že jo? Měli prostě tom LoLku, že by si mohl jenom překliknout z Eastu na West a lognout se tam a nemuset to celý debilně vypínat, jak to funguje teďka. A víš, že bys měl záložku LoLku a LoL Classic v LoL klientu, který bude eventuálně novej, protože bude LoLko 2. To byla paráda, ne, vole? To bys měl prostě jako fakt jako Blizzard klient, kde máš různé hry a můžeš si takhle naklikat.
Context, I do have my fair share of experience dealing with Riot's NDAs. And after about 10 years, I still successfully never leaked anything. And that's because the way Riot works is that when they show you something, either because of testing or because they need opinions, or to just give creators some time ahead to make content, they always show you the dates and they remind them at the beginning and at the end of every presentation. And because people still keep leaking stuff, they shove the embargo dates in your face at every opportunity. And so, for someone to just come out and casually reveal this, I have no idea how it's possible. What is even more hilarious is the way Doinb and Uzi presented these news. Doinb said, and I quote, "I don't really have any news. All I know is that Classic server is supposed to come out next month."
Tak třeba mluvil o Vovku, víš co?
So you do have news. After which Uzi came out and said, and I quote, "The word on the street is League of Legends is getting a Classic server. Is it public knowledge? I still can't talk about it." After which he realized that Riot hasn't said anything yet, and he kinda realized he screwed up by revealing it. After which...
Kámo, dal bych jim pořádnou finanční narážku, přirážku, dorážku. To prostě pořádně zkásnu za to, že to rychnuli. Borci, pro víc takových videí musím poprosit o follow, palec a komentář, protože takové interakce neskutečně zvedají tohleto video. Díky. Každopádně, jak píšeš nostalgie. Já už jsem o tom mluvil, v souvislosti s tím, že se na to lidi ptají dřív, že... Kurňa. Tady jde o to, že LoLko má teďka třeba 3x větší základnu hráčů, než to hraje aktivně lidi, víš co? Protože spousta lidí prostě to hráli třeba rok, 2 a pak odpadli a ty je chceš nějak znovu utilizovat a nutit tu hru zapnout zpátky. A když takhle zapneš LoL Classic, tak ty nejenom, že můžeš skasírovat, že prostě přijdou zpátky a zapnou si zase to LoLko po x letech, co nehráli, protože si budou chtít vzpomenout, jaký to byl pocit, právě z nostalgie. A zároveň může toho aj hrozit, že reálně chytne to LoLko a pak půjdou na to reálně LoLko, na ten retail a budou se k tomu vracet, jo? To může spasit vyloženě Ligu Legend. A byl by podle mě logicky, kdyby to dropli až s tím novým klientem. Nevím, jak to je reálně v souvislosti s tím, že má teoreticky být nový LoLko 2, má být nový klient, má být všechno nový. A ty prostě bys jako předtím tam poslal ten klasik. Místo, abys to dělal všechno zaraz, aby to bylo obří novinky ze všech stran.
Which he freaked out even more because Riot really hasn't announced it, considering it is coming out soon. Which lines up with Doinb mentioning it should be coming out next month. So as far as Alibi goes, this seems legit, and it is funny to see it got leaked so casually. And what supports this even more is another chain of events that happened around Riot. But more on that later. First, what even is Classic League of Legends? Well, as far as we know, the idea would be the same thing that Blizzard pulled off, which made them an unholy amount of money, and that was releasing Classic WoW, which became one of the biggest releases in MMO history.
Poučili se
Essentially, just
rauťáci.
like how Classic WoW released
Našli
the
ten úhel.
original World of Warcraft. Because after 20 years of updates, the game became totally different, League of Legends might be trying to do the same thing. AKA, League of Legends might be coming out with a new game mode that allows you to play League of Legends from Season 2. Or another well-known old season from the past. And
já nevím,
you
jestli to jde
see,
upřímně.
that is exactly where classic League of Legends might run into some issues. Now,
Právě.
the truth is that the idea of Classic League has been around the community for a while. And all it takes is a quick search or two to find many videos on YouTube talking about this potential. And the rule of content states that if there is one person talking about a topic, it is guaranteed that there will be other people with the same mindset that will be interested in the same thing. Meaning, there is definitely gonna be some demand for League Classic. However, as we just mentioned, it is not gonna be easy to pull it off. Because what exactly is League Classic? Is it
Hlavně
League from...
mě spíš napadá ta technická záležitost, jestli jsi prostě máš nějaký zálohy z roku 2010, že můžeš to lolko vůbec jako, jestli to nevytváříš celý od základu, jak to vypadalo, jestli máš fakt jako nějaký zálohy a tu reálnou hru, na které můžeš pracovat. A kdybys ty zálohy měl, tak tehdy bylo lolko ještě větší špagety kód než teďka, takže to asi musel jak kdyby udělat celý od začátku.
10 years ago, or is it League from 15 years ago? Because truth be told, Season 1 of League of Legends was a lot different from Season 6 of League of Legends. And that is one of the biggest obstacles here. With World of Warcraft, Blizzard knew exactly what they needed to do. Because Vanilla WoW was a very specific time period in the game's lifespan, which people just really wanted to experience again. On top of
Vanilla
which, all
Vovko je
Blizzard
nejhorší
had to
Vovko.
do was follow the patches of the game as it released, which guaranteed that people would be going through progressive content. In League, if we go back to the old seasons, there wasn't any progressive content. Back in the day, new content for League of Legends was new skins.
OK. Já jsem asi ještě mladý. Tohodle Gangplanka, tuhle tu Nidalí a tuhle tu Annie jsem já nezažil. Annie očividně byla skurvená karkulka.
Because back then, skins weren't oversaturated yet, and so
A
people got
Gangplank
excited
Chernobyl,
about
so.
everything. Or new champions. Because again, there weren't too many champions yet, and they were coming out about every 3 weeks. On top of which, to sprinkle in some new fast and fun game modes, Dominion came out of nowhere. But I strongly doubt that's something you wanna do with League Classic. I don't believe you wanna have a progressive thing, because eventually you do end up with Modern League anyway. Which,
Ale to je
yes, that is
Vovko,
the
ne?
exact same problem that Classic WoW eventually ran into
Yeah.
after Wrath of the Lich King. But again, with WoW, the progression is completely different from League of Legends.
A podle mě jde hlavně o to, že lidi si chcou zahrát starý čempy. Že to ani není jak kdyby o tom, že by chtěli vyloženě Season 2, Season 3, Season 4. Oni jsou prostě hrát jako starýho Fiddlestickse, starýho Gangplanka, starýho Skarnera. A zkusit to zase znovu, že jo?
Here, because you don't have a theme that ties together
Takže tam
with
hodíš
the
starou
seasons,
mapu,
you
všechny
kinda
starý
just have to
čempiony,
pick one season and
vyloučíš
stick
čempiony
with-
po roce
and once you
2015 a
lock
máš
it
to
in,
hotový.
you just need to give the players the old experience of that season. And that is where issue number 2 comes in. Balance! Because if you take old League and you give it to new players that solved the game in many ways, people are gonna destroy it. And that's good. Honestly, if League Classic becomes a thing, it needs to focus on the fun. Or potentially destroying the fun of the enemy with...
Kámo, neironicky, ty prostě potřebuješ ty nevybalancovaný sračky, protože to jsou ty věci, které si lidi pamatujou. Nevím, jak to máš řešit třeba s barama nebo tak, ale prostě... Víš co, protože teďka jsou nejpopulárnější mody, samozřejmě Aram Mayhem a arenky, kde taky je to prostě nefér. Ty vlastně jdeš queue up arenky, queue up Aramu a doufáš, že ti padnou ty dobrý augmenty a že nemá kom padnout na piču a že budeš farmit. A jako všichni to pořád hrajou. Jiný problém, který má to LoL Classic proti těm arenkám a Aram Mayhemu, je, že to prostě bude delší ta hra. Ty chceš, aby jako lidi trpěli, ale aby netrpěli dlouho. A aby se prostě honili tím, že budou queue upovat znovu a znovu v honbě zatím, aby oni byli ta OP sračka.
on. And that's because that's pretty much the spirit of Classic League. Back in the day, most people didn't even play ranked. They
Chudák
didn't
Soraka.
min-max every part of every champion. I mean, of course, at the highest level, people still did. But at that point, the game was still pretty much taken over by the casual audience, and people just picked whatever champions they wanted
Kámo, ty animace jsou tak trash, já nemám tušení, co tam děje.
in whatever lane they wanted. Because nobody understood the
Ale
meta,
Tryndamere
and
vypadá furt
everyone was
stejně.
here to have
Alistar
fun.
taky, Zelin taky.
And this is the experience that Classic League needs to deliver. Of course, people will still try to force some kind of meta onto the old game, that is unavoidable. But when it comes to the balance, just don't. Just give the game to the players as it was back then and see what happens. Which also
Ui.
brings up another interesting issue. Remember, the old league had talent trees, it had a completely different rune system, and it had completely different setting up of champions. So how is that gonna work? Well, could Riot actually spin up the old systems in the new client? Technically, using the new UI of the client, yes they could. And the way you could handle this is by giving the players unlimited amount to the old resources. This means unlocking the talents and giving people free runes.
Neblbni, jak na tom vydělají ty magore. Samozřejmě, že to bude zase 5 let nahrávat. Jak jako, že bys to unlimited, ne, budeš mít jeden rune page a budeš si muset jiný kupovat.
Because remember, back in the day, the runes were quite the sink. And then you just let people customize the builds just as it worked back then. But the issue would be that now you are taking up memory because people are saving all the builds. Though I guess that one could work if it is stored locally, but if it is stored locally, then hacking could happen. So the other solution would be for every champion to just have
Katarina,
a
že ne?
build already built into the champion. Kinda how you just pick a champion in ARAM and you don't deal with builds. But you would still need different options for champions to be junglers or not and stuff. Not to mention hybrid champions. And that brings up yet another issue. You see, there is a good chance that Riot has the old assets from the old version stored somewhere.
Yes,
and there is a
totalnie.
good chance that they did find a way to spit it all up. But it is extremely likely that they are not gonna be launching the old engine to run Old League on it. Security reasons aside, Old League was built for old hardware with old drivers.
To je dobře, ne?
And so
Aspoň
when it
to
comes
všichni
to
rozjedeme.
compatibility, if you launch Old League now, there's gonna be a bunch of errors. Interestingly enough, when Classic WoW launched, Blizzard fixed this by making Classic WoW run on the framework of the modern WoW client, meaning it is using the modern WoW engine to run it. That is why Classic WoW was technically better than the old version, because it has improved lighting and it has better materials for water. And it is not because Blizzard wanted to make Classic WoW look better. Instead, it is because they couldn't make it look worse. And when it comes to League Classic, Riot will have to do the exact same thing. Especially if Vanguard is in play. And so if they actually manage to run League Classic, it has to be running on the modern engine. And so already, if this was done by the game mode Steam,
Co to takhle to nikdy nevypadalo, ne? To není Kayla, to je Judikátor. Holy shit.
they deserve a big applause, because making this run is gonna be a miracle. But also, yes, because of this, it is unlikely that League Classic is gonna be a separate server with a separate game, but rather it is gonna be a time-limited game mode inside League of Legends. Because on top of this, you can't make it run with a separate store and the old skins. People are gonna freak out because they already bought them. And so because it has to be integrated into the new client, a game mode would make sense. In fact, I believe this would be the easiest way to do this in the first place. Because if Classic League launches as a time-limited game mode, with Season 1 specifically, because if you wanna start somewhere, then it makes sense to start at the very beginning.
Kámo, tohle normálně závidím, komu se jak do přehledný. Ty tady máš prostě jeho target, je Twisted Fate, 0 ability poweru, 48 damage, movement speed, armor. A tady vidíš, co je jeho build. To je skvělý, to chci teďka.
If it becomes a success, well, next time you can do a time-limited run of Season 2, followed by Season 3, and so on.
Yeah.
By doing this, Riot can actually utilize the fun of League Classic And they can technically give it the same progressive feeling which all the other retro relaunched games have.
Celé hře
And
jsou
if you
jenom
do
2D.
this frequently enough, you can actually attract new players. Which leaves us with one more thing to be mentioned. Assuming the general audience would like Classic to happen, how likely is it that Riot is actually working on it right now? Well, at the beginning of this video, I did mention that history repeats itself, and now there is quite a big chance that Classic is happening. So first, let's talk about Chrono Shift. This is something that many of you will not know about because it is kinda black market kinda deal.
Jo,
But for
to jsem
quite some
zbamatuju.
time, the League of Legends community was trying to spin up their own private servers for old League of Legends, with one of these projects actually becoming successful, and that one was called Chrono Shift. Now, in many ways, Chrono Shift was the exact same idea as people running private servers of Classic WoW before Blizzard released the
Yes.
official Classic WoW. And so, if you search Chrono Shift on YouTube, you will actually find a lot of gameplay videos. And the thing is, about 3 years ago, Riot shut Chrono Shift down with cease and desist.
Kámo, to je vlastně pravda, takže oni... Víš co, protože to by ničemu nevadilo. To by bylo úplně v pohodě. A oni to chcou mít asi jako vlastní, že jo?
Which is exactly what Blizzard did to the other vanilla WoW servers before Blizzard released their own Classic
Ano.
WoW. So the chances are
Makes
that the
sense.
history is repeating itself, and Riot is now shutting down other private servers so they can release their own. And so now, if we take this into account, there are other things that are lining up. For example, remember that Freak was taken away from the live development of League of Legends, and he was moved onto another project of League of Legends.
Protože
And
Freak tam
since
taky
Freak
byl,
is
že
one
jo?
of the OGs from the very beginning of the entirety of League of Legends, he would have the knowledge
Kámo,
of how the game
ono
ran
všechno dává
back
perfektní
in the
smysl,
day.
aby se to stalo.
Though that entire part is still a big tinfoil hat
Úplně
theory.
všechno.
But on top of this, a few weeks ago, you might have seen on social media that Riot invited another wave of creators into their headquarters, and this time it seems like the summit had a lot of veteran players as well as pros. Also, they let Skin Spotlights in. He probably data mined like 8 future projects. And so, overall, taking everything we just learned into account, if you thought League wouldn't be getting anything big before the big update of 2027, well, Riot might actually be hiding quite a few secrets up their sleeves, with the chances that someone doesn't pull the things out of their sleeves. But somehow, this time, the new content we might be getting is not catering towards the younger audiences. No, they are already getting the WASD as well as the controller support. No, somehow, the new content is catering towards the boomers. And seeing it is 20-year-old content, we are ancient.
Kámo, na to se musíte ptát Snapyho, protože já si pamatuju, že influenceři je na české scéně, typu Snapy, ještě myslím, že někdo možná Freeze nebo tak. Říkali, že prostě jak kdyby lolko furt čeká velký rok, furt se něco chystá a furt nic nebylo. Tak jako ten update a to lolko OG by mohlo být ono. Ale jako těším se, no. Samozřejmě tady hnedka zmínka toho 90% kasedina. Ale víš co, jako mohli by přidat zpátky ty staré věci a zároveň je vybalancovat. Hitpoint má dobrý kontakty na Riot, myslíš? Že by Hitpoint věděl? Kamarád, by to Hitpoint věděl, tak ten to hnedka líkne, protože by se chtěl udělat zajímavými. Aspoň na tu vteřinu. Takže ne. Víš, co mě ale nejvíc fascinuje, je, že tady jsou prakticky, tady je sorta lidí, kteří když jim řekneš, že může být něco jako LoL Classic, tak oni automaticky jdou a vzpomínají na ty nejhorší části LoLka. Jako třeba tadyhle ten typ, myslím, připomíná tu mapu Dominion, kterou nikdo nikdy nehrál. Nebo lidi, co říká, že by si zahráli Skarnera, který ho nikdo nezapl. Prostě to jsou postavičky a game mody, které byly smazaný, protože o ně nebyl zájem. A teďka po nich každý čeká, jen aby pak zase nehráli. Kdyby nám Riot Games přidal. To je legit zaměril.